Have you ever stopped to think about what actually makes an economy grow? I mean, what's the real engine that lets us produce more stuff year after year? Well, in this explainer, we're going to break that whole concept down to its most basic, absolute core.
It's a huge question, right? But the answer, it's actually pretty elegant. How does a society go from making a certain amount of things one year to making even more the next? That's exactly the process we're going to unpack here, piece by piece.
Okay, so to get to that answer, we've got to start with the absolute foundation of any economy. And it all begins with this simple, self-reinforcing loop. And this idea is kind of beautiful in how self-contained it is. Just think about it for a second. When you make stuff, doesn't matter if it's cars or coffee, that production generates income, right? For the workers, for the owners. And what happens to that income? Well, it gets used to buy the very things that were just made. So in its most basic form, production literally creates its own demand. It's a perfect circle.
But, of course, it's never that simple, is it? The economy is a bit more complex. That perfect circle starts to get way more interesting once you realize that not all stuff is the same. To really get a grip on growth, we need to split everything we produce into two big categories.
So, on one side, you've got what we call consumption goods. These are pretty straightforward. They're the things that directly satisfy our wants and needs, the stuff we use and enjoy, like right now. Then on the other side, you have capital goods. Their job isn't to give us that immediate satisfaction. Nope. Their whole purpose is to help us produce other things and to do it better.
Yeah, so consumption goods are exactly what you'd imagine when you think about going shopping. The mangoes you grab for breakfast, a cool new pen, that pair of pants you've been eyeing. They all fulfill some immediate want or need. Capital goods, though, they're the tools of the trade. We're talking about a huge blast furnace that makes steel, a conveyor belt in a factory, or, hey, even a simple screwdriver on an assembly line. You don't buy these to enjoy them yourself, but man, are they essential. They're the workhorses that make all the other stuff possible. All right, so we've got these two totally different kinds of goods, and this is where a little puzzle pops up. Because if we go back to that simple loop, production makes income, income buys production, something suddenly doesn't quite fit.
The puzzle really comes from two pretty basic ideas. First, let's just assume that all the income from making everything, I'm talking both the pants and the blast furnaces, it all goes to households. And second, what do regular households like you and me spend most of our money on? Well, we buy consumption goods.
So here's the big question, the real head-scratcher. If regular people have all the money and they're mostly out there buying mangoes and pants, who on earth is buying the giant blast furnaces and the factory conveyor belts? Where does the market for all those expensive capital goods even come from? It feels like a massive piece of this economic puzzle is just gone.
And the answer, the missing piece that makes it all click into place, is actually incredibly simple and kind of counterintuitive. It's not found in spending money. It's found in the powerful act of not spending it.
And that brings us to the single word that solves our entire puzzle, savings. It's nothing more complicated than the part of your income that you decide not to spend on stuff right now. It's the money that's left over on purpose.
And this is what's so critical to understand. When people save, they aren't just stuffing cash under a mattress, taking it out of the economy. No. They're actually doing something really important. They're freeing up resources. They're creating this big pool of funds that businesses can then tap into to buy those capital goods we were just talking about.
Think of that pool of funds as the fuel for the engine. It's what allows the whole economy to break out of that simple loop of just making and consuming day in and day out. It's how we get into the territory of actual growth. This is where we get to the engine room.
And there's a name for using that fuel, for tapping into that pool of saved money. It's called investment. This is when companies take the money that people saved and they use it to buy the machinery, the tools, the new factories. It's the other side of the savings coin. You can't have one without the other.
So let's just walk through the whole path from start to finish. Step 1, households save. They decide not to spend every dollar they earn. Step 2, that money gets channeled somewhere, usually through banks or the stock market, from the savers over to the businesses. Step 3, the businesses invest. They use that money to buy new or better capital goods. And then step 4, the incredible result. The entire economy's ability to produce things gets bigger. We can literally make more stuff than we could yesterday. That is economic growth, right there.
And this is the absolute bottom line. It's an unbreakable chain. Think about it. No savings means no pool of funds. No pool of funds means no money for businesses to invest. No investment means no new tools or factories. And no new tools means no growth. It's that simple. Savings is the absolute, non-negotiable starting point.
And there you have it. That's the core loop. Saving makes investment possible. Investment expands our ability to produce. This simple, beautiful relationship is really the starting point for basically all theories about how a modern economy grows. So, we figured out the basic mechanics. But, as always, answering one question just opens up a bigger one, doesn't it? If everything really depends on this first step of saving, then what makes people, or even an entire country, decide to save in the first place? What are the things that influence how much we save versus how much we spend? Now that is a fascinating puzzle, but it's one we'll have to tackle another time.